another episode of Ghouls Night In, the spooky chat show with your best ghoul friends. I'm Penny Snark,
And I'm Midge Munster.
and I think all of us are familiar with like middle school hyperfixation phases.
Middle
Like,
school.
well, I mean, to continuing to this day, but like people. I was definitely a Greek mythology kid in
Mm-hmm.
middle school. I was definitely an ancient Egypt kid. And I've seen a lot of people, who relate to that. But I did also have one thing I was very interested in that I have not seen anyone else share as
Oh
being one
no.
of their special interests. Um, I went through a Harry Houdini phase.
Oh yes, you did. I know about your Harry Houdini
Yes, you
phase.
did. So I don't remember what first sparked my interest, but there were like three different biographies in the middle school library, and I read all of them. And we went. Spoiler alert: there's a Wisconsin connection here,
Well,
so my
that's I was gonna
family and I even
say.
visited
Yeah.
something. um, so I thought that it would be fun to talk about Harry Houdini today.
Awesome.
So I think he's definitely a spooky adjacent figure. All of his collections connections to illusions and magic, spiritualism, and of course he died on Halloween night, the spookiest thing a person can do.
Yeah, so lucky, Harry Houdini.
Right, goals, honestly. So, in addition to my childhood Houdini fixation, I did refresh myself from looking at like the Encyclopedia Britannica about Houdini. I also read an article from the New Yorker called "Harry Houdini and the Art of Escape."
Mhm.
But let's just dive back. Let's go in. The man who would take the stage name Houdini was born Eric Weiss in Budapest, Hungary, on March 24th, 1874. His father was a rabbi, and the family moved to Appleton, Wisconsin,
Woo woo.
when he was 3. The family did later move to Milwaukee, but sadly did not have a great time here,
Womp
fell into
womp.
poverty. They did eventually relocate to New York City. So it was in New York that little Eric first started performing in the circus, and then on the vaudeville stage. So he did like some trapeze work. He did all sorts of stuff. He started training in magic and doing card tricks, which were kind of the classic magic of the time. But didn't find his success until he started doing handcuff escapes and other escape tricks. So he was inspired by, here is a good historical name for us, John Eugene Robert Houdin, a French
Ha, ha,
magician
ha.
of the time. He took his name, obviously, from that, and he in in the future. I mean, in
In the
his future,
future.
not in our future. He later claimed that Harry was in reference to another like great magician, but most people think it is more likely that his nickname at home was Airy for Eric, and that it
Mm.
kind of came from that. So we're gonna see throughout the show that Houdini was kind of a chaotic guy, and we'll get a
No, you don't
well,
say.
yeah, we'll get a little taste of that from the fun fact that he did eventually like go to France during one of his European tours, and met with Robert Houdin's widow to talk to her and ask permission to visit his grave. And the Wikipedia says, quote, he did not receive permission, but still visited the grave.
Nice.
Um, and then later, like, spoke to the papers and said that Mrs. Robert Houdin was actually super rude to him, which seems like an unnecessary thing to dig up. And then he published a whole book saying that this dude stole tricks from people and was a fraud,
Oh my god.
basically.
Wow, what a real oh my god, my brain just died. The guy that was blasphemizing that woman from our previous episode, the
Oh, yeah,
famous
Charles
author
Dickens.
Charles Dickens. My brain was literally like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Sir Arthur Conan. I was like, that's not who I'm thinking of.
You're
Yeah,
sensing that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is going to appear
was
in this story.
it was my psychic abilities. I couldn't unhear it.
We'll see.
But yeah, calling a widow a bitch is kind of a
Yeah, just kind of a weird vibe, seems unnecessary.
seems like a harsh move, Houdini.
So rewind back in time. When he first started doing magic in the 1890s, it was he and his brother performing as the Brothers Houdini. They were in vaudeville shows, side shows, dime museums, just out there hustling, doing whatever you could. And it was during this time that he met another vaudeville performer, Wilhelmina Beatrice Ranner, or Bess, and they got married after knowing each other for 3 weeks. And
Perfect.
she became his stage assistant and kind of took over his brother's place in the show.
Man, cold.
Right?
Bros
I am
before hoes, Houdini.
I know. I'm not even there is not time to get into this, but like his brother had his whole own magic thing. They had like a fake rivalry to like pump each other up and
Oh,
stuff. So
like
they
a,
were he was making it work. He was supporting the bros and the hoes. So it's
amazing.
fine.
A
Um
fake press beef before their
right. Oh
time.
man. So much. There's so much good press stuff coming. Um it always feels risky to say that an old-timey guy was like a good husband or a good person in general.
Sure.
But it seems like they were happy, like from all of the like reports and stuff. It seemed like they never had any children, but they worked and
Ah,
stayed
there it is.
together
No.
through ever. I know that's what they were like.
That's why
People
they
are
were so happy.
I know. Um, but he was also infamously like a huge mama's boy, like very devoted to his mother. And there's a famous photo of him with his mother and with Bess that he has labeled "my two sweethearts," which I thought was very
Oh.
sweet. So let's get into the first thing he was really famous for: his escape acts. So he'd been doing all this handcuff escape stuff, being billed as the handcuff king, and we've got another Midwest connection because it
Ooh.
was in St. Paul, Minnesota in 1899 that he met Martin Beck, who was like entertainment manager, and he was like, "Hey, handcuff thing is great, but you should be focusing on the escape stuff." And
Mm.
started booking him in theaters for these escapes, and this is when his career really took off. So as we, I was really laughing when I was reading this because it definitely gave me flashbacks to our PT Barnum episode.
I've been thinking about this the whole
Because
time,
this
yes.
was like 1900s viral marketing was on lock here. So Houdini would go around and challenge police departments and jails to lock him up so he couldn't escape. Be stripped naked and searched and locked in a cell. And then when he escaped, like everyone in the city would just get hype as hell and be like, I gotta see this show. I gotta go. And he also pioneered like tie-in marketing, I guess. Like a lot of times when he would go to a city to do like a big stunt, there would be some kind of local business. Like he escaped from like a can full of beer that like the Brewers Association like supported,
Oh.
or I don't know, there would be like, ah, this crate provided by Jim's Great Crates.
He's like, use code Houdini10 for your
Exactly. He was making it work, and he would do a lot of these like really public stunts that obviously would get everyone clamoring to get into the theater to like see the show.
That's
So yeah.
definitely like, again, I mean, I know other people were doing it, but it's just so weird to hear that like version of what people do now
Right?
in this context. Like it's really big brain, big thinking.
For real. So kind of his first iconic escape trick would be to be shackled and climb inside a milk can filled with water and then padlocked inside, and he would have to escape. So a couple of years ago, I think this was like 2019. There was a Houdini exhibit at the Jewish Museum in Milwaukee, and one of the things that I really loved is they had like an outline on the wall of like an actual size milk can, and were like, crouch down and see if you'd fit in there.
Oh, well,
Um,
yeah, it's always, I mean, I mean, they're, somewhat big, but definitely not like most humans today sized.
yes, yeah. So Houdini was definitely a short king, as
Yes.
we would say. Obviously, like, no one ever, like, took, like, an official measure, but people generally report that he was, like, 5'5".
Yeah, you'd have to be to fit in those tiny spaces and,
Mhm,
like,
yep,
very, very slender and bendy.
just very compact, muscled, and, like, squishable. Um, and then kind of his next, evolution of that, the more dramatic version, is the Chinese water torture cell. Not an ideal name.
No.
But this is probably something that most people have seen reference to. If you are even like in general magic stuff, when it's not connected back to Houdini, this is the trick where you are shackled by the ankles and lowered into like a glass case filled with water. And
Mm.
have to escape. So like we see this in there's a version of this in the Prestige. I was like glancing through the like pop culture section, and there's like an episode of House where someone
Yes!
is doing a trick like this. So this definitely comes up. And the reason that he actually switched to this was that so many people were copying his milk can escape, and he was not able to like patent that or anything. But the cell was an invention of his own creation, so he
Mm.
was able to copyright that, and he would in fact sue people for trying to copy this routine.
Trying to imagine, like, what that conversation went like when he's like, "I'd like to patent the idea of my body in a milk can full of water." And the patent
Right.
office was like, "Mm,
I don't think
mm."
so. I don't think so. I would say probably the other most famous type of escape was escaping from straitjackets. So
Yeah,
if
that's what I
you,
think of when I think
yep,
Houdini.
yeah. So one of the reasons for that is there is actual video footage of this. That's part of the Library of Congress collection. So he would be suspended upside down in the air from a crane in a straitjacket trying to escape. And more viral marketing. He would often do this outside of newspaper offices to try and guarantee press coverage of this
Perfect.
happening. Um, and I did learn when I was at the little Houdini. So there are a couple like Houdini museums in the country. What I went to in Appleton is like just kind of a general historical society that has like a Houdini exhibit as part
Mhm.
of it. And they reveal that the trick is that you take a deep inhale when you're being strapped in. But that, it gives you a couple of inches to maneuver. Like some of these things like are tricks that have like, inventions or quick releases and things. And some of them are just like being very physically capable of
Yeah,
doing stuff.
able to do it, yeah.
Yeah, some are just like physical stunts. And one bonus, one very weird thing, is one time Houdini escaped from a sea monster. Um,
Excuse
so
me?
yep, so some unidentified dead marine animal washed up in Boston, and a group of businessmen were like, "Hey, I challenge you to escape from this." So they shackled him
Oh,
up and shoved him inside like a dead whale or something, and he did escape, but later said he almost passed out because it stank so bad in there.
when you said escaped from a sea monster, I thought you meant like he was in the water and the
Oh
sea
no.
monster attacked him.
No,
This is so much worse.
yep. That was just a thing that happened back in those
How
days.
much would they I mean, I guess maybe it's for publicity, but, like, how much I feel like they'd have to pay someone a significant sum to be like, "We're gonna shove you in this whale carcass.
Right?
You have 20 minutes to escape."
Right.
Like,
Good luck, my dude.
I I just can't imagine under what circumstances he would be like, "Yeah, sounds
Yeah.
great."
I mean, I will say that like he definitely seemed like the kind of guy who,
He's
you
doing
know,
it for the gram.
doing it for the gram, or also like how there would be like a boy in your class who would do anything if you were like, I'll give you I bet you $1 you won't
Yeah.
whatever. And he definitely seems like someone who was just like, I will do that.
When did you say his birthday was? Is this man's a Sagittarius?
March.
Oh, okay. He's an Aries. That's, you know,
Yeah. Are
fire sign. That's fire sign energy to be
all
like, "I'll
right.
do it." Bet.
All right. Well, you asked for some Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yeah, hit me.
And I would say the second most prominent part of Houdini's legacy is as a debunker of spiritualists and mediums.
Rude.
So in the 1920s, he became buds with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who, as we know, was a very credulous guy. He believed in a lot of things. And he believed that Houdini had supernatural powers, and Houdini was like, I don't, but thanks. um, and in June of 1922, Sir Doyle and Lady Doyle invited Houdini to their hotel room, and they had a seance where Lady Doyle claimed that she was channeling Houdini's mother, who had died several years before, and apparently wrote out like a full 15 pages of messages from his mother, which were in English, which his mother never spoke. And
Mm,
Houdini was like, don't
not a
believe
fan.
that, do not appreciate this, and became pretty fixated on investigating and exposing fraudulent psychics. Obviously, this was not a real boon to their friendship. And
Sure.
Doyle apparently continued to believe that he was supernatural and that his debunkings were him using his psychic powers to block other people's psychic powers, which
Okay.
would be a pretty sick plan if you were a psychic. Like,
It's diabolical. Yeah.
to be fair, I love it. But Houdini offered a $10,000 reward to any psychic who could demonstrate a physical phenomena that could not be explained rationally, which is like $180,000 in today money.
Do you think he's, like, the type, though, that, like, he wanted to be proven wrong?
Yeah, yeah. So we'll get into that a little bit later, but I think
Okay.
it was definitely like he really, and like we said, like he was very devoted to his mother. He like very badly wanted to be
Sure.
able to make connection with her, and was therefore like all the more incensed by feeling like he was being taken advantage of
Bamboozled,
and
sure.
being
Well,
spent.
and because I'm sure all these psychics were like, "Why are you so obsessed with me? Like,
Right.
if you don't believe it, just leave me alone." Like,
Yeah, but no, yeah. So he did
it's
not
fan
like.
behavior, Houdini.
Yeah, I think it was partially like his own personal drama about it, and then he
Sure.
also like as someone who does like illusions, I think he was kind of like, you're the same thing as me, but you're trying to claim that you're
But
something you're
fake.
not, and like that's bad. Like that reflects poorly on me. But
Mm,
like he would like go in disguise to seances, apparently wearing a fake beard and a hump. And then like part way through would rip it off and be like, I am Houdini,
ha
and like
ha!
be like flip a table and like be like turn on the lights and blah, you're a trickery. And I mean I imagine that I this dramatic bitch energy is truly incredible.
I was like, "What a drama king." I love it.
Yeah, definitely a full showman. He was always out there making the most of his scenery chewing.
Love that.
I love it. So he was also, oh my gosh, he was really into aviation for a while. He started a film studio. He like basically labor organized all the magicians from like individual clubs to the National Society of American Magicians. He was out here doing the most. Those things aren't
Yeah.
really spooky, so I'm not really going to get into them today. But anyone can also feel free to read like 3 biographies on Houdini and learn more.
We call it the penny method.
Yes, just absorb it all.
Yeah.
So the legend of Houdini's death is also just kind of a looming part of his history. So the story that you generally hear goes that he was in his dressing room, and some college students came in and were like, "Hey, is it true that you it doesn't hurt you to get punched in the stomach?" And he was like, "Yep." And then this dude punched him super hard before he had a chance to brace himself. And that led to his death several days later.
Oh.
So he had appendicitis, and
Yeah.
he was told,
Was there a drunk history episode about him? I'm
I
like,
believe
yeah,
so.
I'm like,
Yeah,
I've heard this story. Why? I
yes.
don't know anything about Houdini. But yeah.
He was told to go to the hospital immediately, and he was like, "Nah, I'm not going to do that." And he performed a show instead, and then he died on
Yeah.
Halloween night, 1926. So there is no known link between punching and appendicitis. Some people are like, well, maybe he would have like taken the abdominal pain more seriously, like if he hadn't been punched and like was like,
Right,
oh,
like,
I
he thought
got
it was
punched.
just, like, "I'm sore." Yeah.
But I'm also like they literally told him he needed to have his appendix taken out and he was like, "Not today." So I don't think that he would have taken anything seriously, honestly. Uh
He was, like, in his head, living for the drama of him, like, dying on stage. He was like, "What if I just
oh my
pass
god,
out?"
right?
And everyone's like, "Oh my god," and
Oh
then I
my
stand
god.
up and I rip off my hump, and
Yes. You got to rip off that hump and be like, "What's up?"
I
Um
will only picture Houdini entering stage to my humps now. Just him, like, coming on stage like,
Oh yes. That was definitely his vibe.
that was what was happening, yeah. Historically
um
accurate.
Gosh. But yes, as I think I mentioned this way back in our
The
when
Ouija
we
board
when we had a
episode.
Ouija board episode and like
Episode
seance
2,
stuff
baby.
back in the day. So he did make a pact with his wife Bess, that if connection beyond the grave was possible, he would make contact with her. And their secret code was Rosabelle Believe, and that was Rosabelle was their favorite song. Um, so Bess held a seance every Halloween for 10 years after he died, at which point, apparently, she is quoted as saying, 10 years is long enough to wait for any man, which, hell
Queen.
yeah, Bess. Love it. She did in 1928 briefly say that a medium named Arthur Ford, who Arthur Conan Doyle introduced her to, had
Mhm.
given her the code. But then she later kind of took it back and said she believed he figured it out through fraudulent means, which seems to be supported from some future investigation into this dude who had like books of people's obituaries, like disguised as poetry books and stuff, and like was definitely doing some background research on people.
Yikes.
But they're so Bess gave up after 10 years, but Houdini fans have continued to do Houdini seances to this day. There is an official Houdini seance held on Halloween in different cities. And as I mentioned in the seance episode, I did attend a Houdini seance. This was not the official one, but it was being held at the Jewish Museum where that exhibit was. So I thought that was a pretty cool Halloween adventure.
Yeah.
And it was a really interesting experience. I think
Did
folks,
you have to fast 24 hours ahead of
I
time?
did not, I did not fast for
Darn. Well,
24
that's why he
hours, and I
didn't
did
show
not get
up.
any special seance juice.
Mm. No
Um,
special salad.
no special salad, sadly. But it was really interesting. I don't normally participate in things like this just to
You don't
be.
say.
I mean, obviously, as everyone knows, it is not something that I personally believe in, and so generally, I'm like, I'm not Houdini. I'm not coming in here with my hump to like blow up anybody's spot. But since it was just, kind of like a public sociable event, I was like, yeah, that seems fair. I can attend this and hang out and see. The local medium had like a spirit horn, and they brought out like a pair of handcuffs that were part of the exhibition.
That's
And
cool.
tried to call out to Mr. Houdini. Sadly, we did not hear from him, but it was still a pretty cool time.
Was he
Um,
Jewish, or is this
yes,
museum just for okay, I was like, or is this museum just very excited about
they just
Houdini?
love Houdini. Yes, as we briefly mentioned, this is actually about to come up again. But as we briefly mentioned, back his dad was actually a rabbi. So yeah, they
Oh, yeah,
were.
you did say that, but my brain didn't process that.
No, for sure. So just to add, sprinkle on a little bit of post mortem drama.
Bum,
Um,
bum, bum.
Houdini was buried in Machpelah Cemetery in Queens. And there has been ongoing drama about the maintenance of his grave ever since.
Oh, no.
Um, like, I guess it's because, like, the Society of Magicians, like, partially maintains it, and, like, they were supposed, because he basically like made it what it is today, and so they kind of
Sure.
consider him their forefather, and they're like, oh well, like we're supposed to fund the cemetery, but the cemetery like sends us a bill, but then they don't actually do anything, and then we do this. And then there was a bust of him, which was like a drama because they don't usually allow likenesses in Jewish cemeteries.
Oh,
And
interesting.
then the bust was defaced, and then it was replaced with a new bust, and it just seems like a whole kind of to do.
Yeah, a lot
And
going on there.
yes, and his great nephew in like 2008 wanted to exhume his body to look for evidence that he was murdered by the spiritualists, who were pissed about all of his
Well,
hump
I'll tell you what,
activities.
if we learned one thing, from Miss Patience Worth, it's that the spiritualists really do be out here.
They do be out here, but nothing ever came of that request. And just for a bonus bummer fact, Bess had wanted to be buried next to him, but her family was Catholic and wouldn't let her be buried in the Jewish
No!
cemetery, so she's buried like 30 miles away. Wah
Well, I
wah
mean, if
wah.
anything, that's maybe he'll come back now in a seance because he's mad.
Right? And be like,
He's like, "You
Bess.
didn't bury my sweetheart next to me?"
Right? Yeah. No good. But yeah, I could talk for a very long time about Houdini. But we'll wrap it up there. He's just a really fascinating guy. Like
Yeah.
he was an inventor of so many things. He was definitely a bit of a wild child, it seems. Was super flashy, definitely very egotistical, and thought that he was the smartest person ever, but also really passionate about things. And I also I don't know, one of the things that the New Yorker article mentioned that I have always thought is was kind of like, obviously there's no way to know if this was like kind of purposeful, but like there's
Mhm.
just such an interesting like kind of anti-authoritarian stance of like being able to like escape from any handcuffs and like baffle the police and
Yeah.
stuff. So I think that's pretty cool. And he did once escape from like some kind of like Russian transport that was like, this is the cage that we take people to Siberia in. And he would be like, and so he like escaped from that, and that was kind of seen as like explicitly kind of like a fuck you to like
Yeah.
anti-Semitic Russian influences at the time. So hell yeah.
It kind of he kind of gives me like the same font as Vincent Price in just the sense that like he had all these bizarre interests, like just kind of
Yes.
a man of many things. Definitely more hot headed than
Oh
Mr.
yes.
Price, but um,
But yeah, and I mean, you have to be a certain kind of person to be like, yeah, lock me up and toss me in a river and we'll see what
mhm.
happens.
There's a word
Uh
for that, I think. Yeah, no, that's the water stuff really gets to me because like I mean there must be uh, I mean, you said that he invented the one where he's hanging by his feet, so I'm
mhm.
assuming that one he knew for sure he could get out of. But like the milk can with the padlock, like
Right?
what's your plan if you don't if you don't escape? Like
Yeah.
that's
And like at
terrifying to
least
me as a
at least
claustrophobic person.
yeah, at least that's even like on stage. Like he was definitely like they would like chain him up in a box and just literally dump him in a river.
Yeah,
Like, what are you gonna do, my man?
that's
you have to
crazy.
be you have to be pretty confident in your abilities to be
Yeah.
willing to do that. So,
Yeah, that's a bold human for sure. Or a
hmm,
stupid human, or both.
or both.
It can be both.
Yeah, a little bit of both for sure. But I would love to know if I'm not the only one who had a Houdini face. Let me know, because it was also like it was not even like a magic or a magician phase. Like it was
Yes,
very
him
specifically
specifically.
Houdini face.
You weren't running around yelling "mind freak" at people.
I was not. I was not. Uh, Goodness gracious. But yeah, just an interesting, spooky person of history.
Yes. Cheers to you, Houdini.
Cheers to ya.
Wish you
Well,
hadn't been taken out by an appendicitis.
right. A good reminder for all of us to just go to the doctor when people
Right? Like if people say
when
your
people are like,
appendix
you
is
need to go to
ruptured.
the hospital because your appendix is rupturing. Don't be like,
I'm
I don't
good.
think
I'm gonna
so.
put on a show.
I would rather do my show. And I mean, that really tells you everything you need to know.
I was gonna say, if that isn't like a caricature of theater people, I don't know what is.
Yes. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us again today. If you enjoyed the show, we would so much appreciate it if you would take the time to rate and review our podcast. Wherever you listen to find podcasts, if they only let you leave a rating, you can feel free to DM us the review. But I do believe we have a review to read today.
We do. And this is a 5-star review from Apple Podcasts from Spoopy M titled
Hmm.
Pure Spooky Joy. Nothing brings me more spooky joy than when the Ghouls Night In theme song starts playing, and I know I'm about to be laughing and learning absurd facts about my fave horror icons from a couple of connoisseurs of the macabre who honestly feel like friends at this point. Happy halfway to Halloween.
Aw, thanks, Spoopy M.
Thank you. That's so sweet. I had the urge the other day to post like a reel or a TikTok on our account that was like,
Mhm.
does anybody else do this at the end of at the end when our little theme starts playing? I'm always like twerking in my car.
Yes.
Like go from like having a very serious learning moment to like dun, 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 dun.
What you got to
And
do, you got to twerk all the learnings.
yeah, that's how you retain the information.
Yeah,
That's what you did after each Houdini
yeah.
biography.
That's exactly what happened.
Twerking for Houdini.
I closed it neatly, I set it down, and I got up and I twerked for Houdini.
Well, on that note.
On that note, if you would like to follow along with all of this quality content, if you want to know if Midge ever will post a reel of twerking to our theme song,
Yes.
follow us on Instagram at Ghouls Night in Pod. And if you are looking for me, you can find me at Penny Snark.
And you can find me all over the web at Midge Munster.
And until next time,
Goodbye.
goodbye.